Okay, so I've got I made this awesome modeling here. It's awesome models, okay? But I paid attention to one key aspect when I was setting it up. What do you think, guys think that might be? What's that? Oh, well, sure. I mean, yeah, like if you were setting up a shot and you didn't have the assets yet, then you could like do something that you thought was roughly like it was going to be, and you could probably get most of the system working by the time that you actually had the real model built or in the real city built and stuff like that. And actually, that's what's done in studios. Like, I'm not generally given any of the assets I work with, or even the camera, and I have 50% of the effect done before I ever get those things. So that's the cool part about Houdini is you can always swap out the start and it'll still work. But I think the main thing I try to stress when you're setting up effects is that everything needs to be the right size. Okay? Because if it's not the right size, then it's going to react completely differently no matter what situation you put it in, whether it's like simulation or rendering or lighting or anything. Okay? Now, so I looked up kind of what a city block should be. Right? So this is the size of a city block. And, I kind of looked up how tall and whatever a building was, average. So this is like an average building size. And I made the saucer kind of visually what I thought like a saucer would be. But I had these two pieces to go with, all right? So the saucer, it's not animated or anything. It's just, I'll leave that up to you guys. So basically, just animated the saucer kind of with keyframes. See, they're just a few keyframes, and I've just got it going from a starting point, and it's kind of spinning around, and it just kind of crashes and skids in the ground. Okay, you guys can handle that now, right? All right. So we're just going to have the saucer crash into our building, and don't worry about the fracture yet. We're just starting off with this building. Okay. So let's do that first. Okay. So you're starting off here. Go ahead and animate the saucer crashing in the building. Cool. One tendency I've noticed among students is that things always go really fast because they want to have really, really powerful explosions and stuff. And first of all, in Houdini, to preview something in real time, it's this little guy down here. Okay, so you can see exactly how fast it's going. Okay, I'll do the other one. There we go. Real time. There we go. Okay. Okay. So this is the real time. You can see how fast it's playing. But yeah, I've noticed like almost consistently among all students that are really interested in explosions and breaking stuff and destruction and all that, who isn't, right? That everything is gonna collide at massive speeds, and they want to have these super, super powerful explosions. And the reason that stuff isn't so good for demo reels is because force and motion really go out the window. Like all these natural properties that people are used to seeing tend to break down. Instead of spinning at appropriate speeds, stuff starts just crazy spinning. And instead of like going off in meaningful directions, things just completely go everywhere. And that isn't a lot for someone evaluating a reel to really know if this person gets dynamics or not, because it's pretty easy to make things like blow up just super fast. So if I were to do like something like this for my demo reel, I would actually have it traveling more like this. Look how slow, well not this because real time's off. Turn back on real time. Okay. Look how slow this thing's actually traveling into this building. Okay, so that way we're actually going to be able to observe, okay, this shot, it's going to have like really show the weight. That's what really the first thing they always look for is, does this simulation show proper weight? Does it show proper physics? Does it show a good impact, or is stuff just flying everywhere? So don't ever underestimate the power of just very controlled, good simulations. Like understatement. kind of like, they really want to see what's going on, and it doesn't always have to be like super fancy. On Transformers 3, for instance, I had to just drop some bullets on the ground. Like, just they were like these two little Transformers, and they were just like bullets were falling. So yeah, we actually did quite a few little iterations, and they really wanted to see like good, like just bullets falling. They wanted it to be kind of like a funny little moment, and to have these bullets really kind of artfully kind of fall and roll on the ground, and that's something you might have to do, and it's not going to be some giant, blowing up a building. It could just be like something like that, and they really want to see the touch there. Okay, so think about that as we go along today. All right, so okay, so we have this saucer. It's coming down from the atmosphere, and it's really just gonna crash into this building here. Okay, so looking at this effect, I would say that first of all, it's good to preview it with a box, but to do it for real, you'd really want to have a model that you could have the structure in and everything, because the building isn't going to break apart in, like, it's not going to break apart in chunks. It's going to break apart structurally, so it's going to have its beams and stuff and all that, so you'd want to model that in, okay? But we're just going to introduce DOPs here, so we're not really going to worry about that. All right, so we also need to think about resolution. So the building doesn't really need to have a lot of pieces up here, right? Because it's really not being broken up here. It needs to have a lot of detail where it breaks right here. Okay, so I need to come up with some kind of a system that has more fractures here than up here. Okay, and that way also it has to be procedural, because if the animation changes, I don't want to have to remodel my building. Okay, so if it changes and they art direct it differently, and like, oh, now the flying saucer should hit up here, I want to have a system that has more fractures here then, without me having to do anything. Okay, so here's how we're going to do that. So in a new geometry object, first we're going to do an initial fracture. Okay, so I'll just start this from scratch here. There we go. Okay, so a new geometry object. All right. So how do we get stuff from one place into another place? Object merge, all right. Okay. All right, so I want my my building and my saucer. Okay, so I'm going to get my building output. And let's get the saucer. Okay, now the thing with the saucer, remember, is it's animated, right? So I'm not seeing that at all yet. Why is that? Yeah, so we need to actually apply the animation, right? So I usually do that by a little dot there. Okay. There we go. All right. Okay, now I want to give this building an initial fracture. Now, the reason you'd want to initially fracture something is because if I were to just put a bunch of high resolution points like right in here, this geometry up here is going to be kind of messy. Let me show you guys how that works. So I'll show you guys by a grid here. Okay, so here's my grid, and let's say I wanted to fracture the building with this. Okay, so these are points. So I would do my Voronoi fracture. I'll put my points in here, my building in here, and let's try to copy that grid a few times. Okay. So I've got pretty good fractures in here. Let's try to point jitter that a bit. Okay. Okay, so I'm getting some pretty good high-res fractures in this part, but up here it's really nasty. Like, you don't generally want polygons that are just kind of completely stretching and all that all over the place. It becomes really hard to light. It becomes really hard to for people to put UVs on it and all kinds of stuff. Okay, so generally you want to have a very sparse initial fracture on a surface if you're using Voronoi techniques, so that when you go in high-res area, you have a very well-defined area that you can turn into high-res. Okay, so to give it an initial fracture, I'm going to first turn this building into a volume, scatter just a few points in the volume, and then use those as my kind of base initial fracture. Okay, so anybody remember from last week how we turned this thing into a volume? Yeah, ISO offset. Great job. Okay, so ISO offset. And if you wanted to make this a collision surface, you've got like an ISO surface here. You can turn it into a surface you can use for collisions. But for right now, we want a fog volume. I'm going to name it density. And I'm going to give it a little bit more resolution, so like 100 sampling. See, now we've just got basically a three-dimensional image representing where the building is. Okay? And then we can use our scatter. And by default, we're going to get way too many points for a low resolution fracture. So I'm going to turn that down. So number of points, oh, I don't know, 100 is probably good. Okay? All right. And then using the Voronoi fracture, I'm going to plug in my building and my scatter. And this is a really good starting point right here. See, now if it just collided with this region, I would only use these blocks. I would only cut those up farther. Okay, and I could leave these other guys untouched. All right, so that's really why we're doing it this way. Now, if I were to plug this into DOPS right now, what is DOPS? I'll get to that. If I were to plug this into dynamic simulation right now, it would be really bad because these are actually detached pieces. If I do like an edit and I go and I grab one of these, you can see that it's actually it's disconnected, and these guys don't form collisions very well. They're kind of like thin pieces of paper that you'd force the package to collide with. So on this Voronoi fracture, just remember to connect the inside edges. Okay? And you also, that should be good. That should be good. Okay. Yep. So just connect inside edges. Now when we go to edit, see, now it's connected. You see that? It's all these pieces inside there. They're gonna form good collision chunks that we can use. All right. So hopefully this won't take too long. So import your saucer, import your building, turn your building into a volume, scatter some points, and fracture it. All right.